You're very welcome to another episode of the Scaling Your Business podcast. For this episode, we are joined by Will Holden, the co-founder of Vidu.io. Will, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Delighted to have you. Will, typical fashion of the show, we spend the first couple of minutes getting to know the guest, and then we jump into all good things. No different with you. So take me back. You've got a UK accent. I know you went to university in Liverpool, but you've not got a Liverpool accent. So where did you grow up, and what was life like where you grew up?
Okay, I grew up in Blackpool, and for anyone that doesn't know, that's the northwest of England. It's not far from Liverpool and Manchester, seaside town, just across the water from Dublin. And it's tough, isn't it? Like childhood stuff. Okay, Blackpool. My
favorite hobbies. What did you like to do as a kid?
Oh, okay, cool. Skateboarding.
Nice.
I love skateboarding. Yeah. And just like mucking about, going out on my bike, building little ramps and stuff in the street and knocking about in the neighborhood. We lived on a council estate when I was a kid, actually. So there was a real sense of like community, and everyone's kids would be out with everyone's kids, and it was rough at times, but it was very, very social. So yeah, that was me outside most of the time playing. And then once I got my hands on a Sega Mega Drive, that was kind of the end of that. And then a PlayStation, and then Dreamcast, and yeah, love games.
Yeah, awesome. So you grew up in Blackpool. Did you move then to Liverpool to go to uni, or did you go back and forth?
No, moved.
Yeah. Okay.
So went to primary school, secondary school, Blackpool, just outside of Blackpool. And then as soon as I finished college, I thought, yeah, I'm done. Want to get out of here now. Went straight to Liverpool, which wasn't too far away. And I used to drive my Fiat Cinquecento, the in-betweeners car.
Yes.
I had that car. Yeah, mine was bright yellow all the way around. And I was so proud of it. I used to wash it and wax it way too much every weekend. This old lady used to walk past the house and say, "You're going to wash that car away?" And I didn't mind though. I was just so happy to have my car. Yeah, I'd drive back and forth up to Liverpool, and I was based there, for a few years.
What an iconic car. We'll get into it eventually around your current role. But what was it work that brought you to Dublin?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, after finishing uni at Liverpool, business management administration, tailored towards purchasing and supply chain management at the end, and then walked into a logistics role. Went to work for a company called CH Robinson. They're worldwide, big, based in America, but they had an office in Manchester. So straight out of uni, went straight into that job, picked up everything, moved over, didn't know anyone, just made a go of it in Manchester. It was fine. Was there for 2.5, 3 years. And the pay was shit. Can I swear?
Yeah, as much as you want.
Oh, great. Well, the pay was shit. It was so shit. But I was so happy to have a job, and I was so happy to be learning and in the work environment, and just it was a wealth of learning, and not just like I learned from people, but like hard lessons, like stuff that I'd want to avoid as well. So it was a real mixed bag, and it was very, very formative. And then one day a friend of mine, really close friend, she's amazing, said, "Hey, I think you'd be a great fit for one of the teams at Google." And I thought, oh my God, Google. You've seen the movie, right? And it's just this kind of thing out there, and who goes to work there? I can't do that. My God, it's like this self-confidence thing. But I loved what I did. I loved my craft. I loved selling. And I knew I was good at it and getting better at it, right? I had so much more to do. And she said, no, you'd fit in. You're really googly, whatever the fuck that means. And I said, okay. So I applied for it 2-3 months later. I got the job, and I'd never been to Ireland before. Never been to Dublin, of course. And I was in a bar and I got this call, and they said, yeah, so really happy to extend you an offer. And I just bit their hand off. I was like, yeah, take it. There's no negotiation, nothing, just straight in there. Yeah, right, I'm moving, done, packed up everything, got the ferry over, managed to blag one of my friends to load up his BMW M3, which is not that big. It was an old one as well. And we stuffed it full of stuff. And we went over in the middle of the night. And and it's been 8 years since then. Never looked back. Best move of my life. Love it here in Ireland.
And now you're growing a family here in Ireland, so you're
my
semi-permanently here.
I am, yeah. My amazing wife, at the time she wasn't, but we were together throughout all of this, right? So I went to work for that company, CH Robinson, right after uni. Maybe I don't know, a year and a half into that, or a year into that. She worked for the same company, but in Poland. And we got to know each other. We were on a training together in Amsterdam at the EU head office. And we just hit it off and never looked back. We were long distance for a while, and then she moved to Manchester. She took a real risk, bringing everything over, coming to be with me in Manchester. And then she took another big risk, coming over with me to Dublin. She trusted me. She landed a job at Google, actually, after getting there. About 5-6 weeks later, it was all right. Yeah, it was crazy how it works out. She works for Facebook now, hence the picture behind us. But yeah, now we're growing a family. A lovely daughter, Sophie. She's 17 months, and yeah, it's just been great. Our own little island in Ireland, you know. Awesome,
that's really cool. Talking about your own daughter, I not go back as far as that, but go back to your early years. What did you want to be when you grew up? So young William on the streets of Blackpool, what did he inspire to be? You could say a footballer if you wanted, or a skateboarder.
No, never had any interest. Yeah, a skateboarder. Yeah. It was Red Hot Chili Peppers and Avril Lavigne. I think I wanted to be Anthony, and I wanted to date Avril Lavigne. That was the whole thing. And I had my skateboard with me. What did I want to be? I always wanted to do something in business. That was very clear. So from a young age, my dad was a window cleaner, and the money wasn't great, and the work was hard, and it was all year round. It was outside. And he'd often bring his work home with him, and you'd go out with him in the van and stuff like that. So I'd be cleaning windows, or at the very least going out with him to collect money from folks after he cleaned the windows. So I'd be handling cash, and he'd be giving me little jobs to do. And that was really, really impactful for me. Just going out with him to do that job, no matter how basic it was my first experience in exercising. It sounds cheesy, but being an entrepreneur, right? He was running his own business, and he was taking his son along with him. And it was just awesome to see Dad do his thing, to speak with customers, to get paid for it. I love that. So I wouldn't say I wanted to be a window cleaner, but I definitely wanted to do something commercial, do something business facing, and then throughout my life more and more do my own thing, right? Build my own thing. So yeah, it was always business focused.
Pretty cool getting to work with your dad as well. That must have been nice.
Yeah, great. I mean, great way to spend time together. And but the lessons were tough, you know. I mean, you'd be with your dad, and he's your dad, but at the same time, he's your boss. You'd know this. Come on.
Yeah, no, I do. I had 6 years at it.
Yeah. And, you know, imagine you're a kid and you mess up or something, and so he's got to have patience. You've got to have tolerance and understanding, right? It was a really interesting dynamic. The two of us learned a lot of lessons, right? So,
absolutely.
Pocket money. You didn't ask this, but I go out to work with him, not necessarily because I wanted to. Sometimes I couldn't be asked. You'd be a small kid and you'd be thinking, oh my God, it's cold. I don't want to put my hands in and out of water all day. Jesus Christ. When I was a kid, though, the pocket money was getting 20 pence, maybe. I remember getting bumped up to 50p, and it was huge. It's like, oh my God, 50 pence. This is big. I could get like one small chocolate bar and maybe a packet of bangers or something. This is awesome.
Nice.
And friends of mine, they'd be getting £10 notes and stuff. Yeah. And at first I'd be like, oh, I wish I had a tenner. But then, you know, I look back at it now and I think, wow, how valuable was that? I'd save up my 20 pence pieces until I had enough to buy a deck of Pokemon cards. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I'd like to rewind the clock to.
I don't know if you can rewind it any further than that, mate.
Yeah, no, we're not going back there. We're talking current day, rewinding at 10 years, just to see H. Robinson.
Yeah.
You spent 3 years there, and you finish up as an AE. So I've got a couple of questions around that. Any lessons that you took from your time in H. Robinson, specifically as an account executive? Did you improve any skills while you're there? Building rapport, the ability to spot certain things, communication skills. What did the role as an AE teach you? Do you think other people should spend time in sales before they go into the workforce?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. For me, it was an incredible experience. There's a part of me that wishes, like, oh my gosh, I wish there was more enablement. I wish there was more training. I wish there was somebody I could have looked to and gone, wow, I want to do it just like them. there wasn't really at the time. It was an interesting business, and it was a very small team, and the people that were good at what they did, they sort of did it on the side, and you didn't see them much. It's logistics, so they're on the road a fair bit as well. So it wasn't like working in a tech company where you listen to recorded calls, or you have these amazing team meetings, and this culture is just so fabulous around development, learning. You're all in it together, and you sit next to people and you can hear it all happen. It wasn't like that. And there's a part of me that wishes, my God, I wish it was. But then there's another that says, no, that was an incredible lesson. I failed so hard all the time in that role, and I didn't even realize. That's the thing. It was about, I don't know, 18, 24 months in, right? I reflected on it, and I started reading some sales books, and it was like this wave of awareness just washed over. I was like, oh my God, here are all the things. Oh, wow, I could have done that on that call. I could have said this. This is amazing. I was one of those people that I had all the enthusiasm and the confidence to go out there, right, and do it. Sometimes I'd be driving up and down the country, and I'd just walk into a shipping warehouse, right, with my little suit on and my tiny little, CHR briefcase, and I'd be on planes and I'd just chat to people and just start selling them freight forwarding services. Like, just absolute bollocks. Don't do that. Don't do it. But I wanted to. I was so enthusiastic about it. I'm going to go and sell. Yeah. And at the time I thought, oh, man, this is great. This is great. And no one had the courage to really knock me back, because I was so confident. And then one day I started to, there was a man called Dan Odekirk. He was great. He came in CHR and he gave me a book, and it was called Silver Bullet Selling by G.A. Bartik. It's not a fantastic book, but it's a decent first book to read if you're starting to put structure around the way that you sell and how you sell. And that was a big moment for me. That was the first decent book I'd read. That was the first time I'd ever really critically looked back on my own experiences in sales and thought, wow, how could I have done that better? I'd never had a framework for improvement before. I'd never really had a model to look at and interpret all the things I was doing and get better at it. I had a hunger and a yearning, right? And don't get me wrong, I was reflecting on my work and I wanted to get better, but I didn't really have that, here's how it's done, Will. And that for me was the start of that. So C.H. Robinson was an incredible opportunity, not just because it was an amazing place to work. In many ways, at times, it wasn't. But it was this pressure cooker of different experiences and challenges, and at times a lack of direction, and you just figure it out. And I enjoyed that. There are a lot of people that go into places like Google or these big companies now, and they're really young, they're out of college, and that's their first job, and they don't know any better. Like, wow, the kitchen is fully stocked. I never have a need for anything. This is amazing. Oh my God, look at all the stuff that gets given to me and taught to me, all these learnings. I don't need to go and find anything. It's just great. The money's great. Awesome. Remember my job, I think I was on £19,000 to start. And I was very thankful for it, right? And there was none of that. The micro kitchen you had, if you were lucky, there was there was a fresh bucket of Nescafe. I remember one day we got an espresso machine, right? Everyone has an espresso. These big companies now have frigging barista machines. We got an espresso machine, and my God, like, people were trading those Nespresso pods like crack cocaine. It was like cigarettes in prison. Mad. This wasn't a workplace where you don't need to worry about those things. Like, you had to worry about those things. These companies today, they just take away all of that crap and they allow you to just do what you want to do really well. But back then I had to wrestle and contend with all these things. And I look at these folks today that join those companies, and there's a part of me that wishes I could do it, but then there's another part that thinks, you don't know how good you've got it.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful for that first role, because I learned a ton, not just about sales and how I wanted to work, but about myself. And now every role I've had since then, it's been this feeling of, oh my God, I don't ever want this to end. This is amazing, because I know where I've come from. And that's not to say that was a bad thing, not at all. It's just I have this amazing reference point now. So yeah, anyway, when I went to Google, I could not believe my luck. And after a while, that kind of wears off, but yeah, it was good.
I have some friends who work in those places, and some of the benefits they tell me about when we're chatting, having beers in the weekend, I'm like, holy moly. One or two have tried to invite me in for lunch, and I'm like, I don't want to go in to your office for lunch, because then I'll be like, I want this. I just want to live a life where I don't know that that exists. I know that it exists, but it doesn't exist to me, you know?
Yeah. No, unless it's going to be yours, don't go and look at it. And if you ever do look at it, just know you know what the other side looks like, and you'd appreciate it. You know?
Exactly. Well, you referenced that Google brought you to Ireland. Spent almost 2 years there as a sales manager. Then you moved to Intercom, 5.5 years, with the latter 3 as your title on LinkedIn was EMEA head of outbound sales development. So the question I have around that role, being a management-led role, is what are 1 or 2 things that you felt you did well in that management-led role that contributed to the growth of Intercom? Anyone who doesn't know, Intercom is an Irish founded company who achieved unicorn status. So you were on board that train when it was growing rapidly. So yeah, what do you think contributed that you felt you did well that contributed to the growth of that company?
Very simple. There are lots of things, and we could talk for ages, but Intercom's a phenomenal place to work. Like just an amazing company doing amazing things, impactful things. A lot of folks say, "Oh, we're going to change the world." Intercom's never said that, nor do they have that ambition in that way. But they really are. You know, it's such an awesome, progressive company to work for with an amazing culture. And for me, when I got there, I just like with Google, oh my God, I've made it. I've made it again. This is amazing. I worked there for 5.5 years. I loved every second of it. And you're talking about the last part of my career there where I built the outbound team. And really simple, just coaching, enablement, spending time interfacing with reps, just being there with them and understanding the role. It was an interesting position to be in because there wasn't a team. There wasn't an established process. We tried to do outbound before in different ways and it hadn't quite worked. And there was nothing. So it was right, we've got to start the outbound team. So pick a rep, pick another one, train them, build the cadences, select the account list, you know, liaise with the teams, build relationships with marketing, right? All that stuff had to be done. All of it needed to be put together. So for me, a large part of it was strategy and building and laying down the operational foundation for that team to grow and succeed over time. But the other part, and they're not equally weighted, this was so important, was coaching and enablement, and more than that, more than just helping a rep do their job, like really building trust with them. And you said, hey, what do you think was helpful or impactful there? I'm really proud of this. I'm really proud of the time I spent with those reps and the time they gave to me. Like I'll always remember all of them. I remember every one of the promotions. I'll remember every one of the tough conversations and the tears and the hard times. It was a gift. And if there's one thing that I think I'm really happy about that I did well, I really do think it was just spending time with those folks, making them feel heard. This was not an established team and process that you could just slot someone into. Oh, we'll cookie cutter a manager here and we'll put a person there and it's kind of the way it is and it's a machine and it runs and you put this in and that comes out. Like, no, not at all. It was messy and mucky and just, you know, unstructured. None of it was there. So I really needed the trust of that team. I needed them to trust me and I trusted them. And so every day for me, it was about showing them that. And I did that through on the job coaching. I'd sit with them in the trenches, right, so to speak. We'd write emails together, we'd build cadences together, we'd review accounts together. I think that was important. I love that.
Yeah, very cool.
That's my passion.
Sounds like it was a great time to be involved at Intercom, particularly at that level, building out the outbound team.
Oh yeah.
Today, you're the co-founder of Vidu. Rather than me take the mic and give it a 30-second commercial, you'll do a better job at it. So the mic is yours.
Vidu is a platform that extends across the entire sales funnel, making it really simple and effective, really easy for sales folks to personalize content throughout. So you can imagine at the very top of funnel, when people are sending emails, putting gifs into emails that play immediately, that introduce themselves to prospects in a super personal way. Further through the funnel, you can imagine demos, sending people's demos that are really easy to create, fast, 20, 30 seconds, not 3, 4, 5 minutes, fully personalized. Even further through that, then we'll work on tools for videos, for presentations, for infographics, for images. I firmly believe that the sales funnel as a whole, people call it a leaky bucket. I think that's like how and why do we tolerate that? Why do we accept a 1 or a 2% conversion rate at top of funnel for outbound. Like, what the fuck is going on? Why do we pay SDRs tons of money today? Like a lot of money. And by the way, sales in these organizations, it's still one of those functions that scales in a linear way. If you're a large company and you want to get bigger, most of the time, unless you're like ridiculously product led, you need to invest in sales. Over time, you will become sales led from a revenue perspective. And over time, when you want to double your revenue, many times you have to double your sales headcount or close to it. And I think that's just such a weakness for business. It's tough. It's tough. It's a huge human cost. There's a huge capital cost to that, and it's woefully ineffective today. And we've accepted it, and our solution is to just put more people into that team, scale. I think there's a lot more work that can be done in optimizing conversion rates throughout that entire sales funnel from top to bottom. And I believe that personalization and good content, valuable content that speaks to the customer, right, that shows you your products in context of their business, that allows sellers to communicate really personally, effectively, but fast and saves time. If we can move that conversion rate from 1-2% to 3-4-5 at the top of the funnel, the downstream impact of that is massive. And that's before we get to everything else. So we're starting at the very top. We're building tools for sellers to send great outreach really quickly and make it personal and connect with prospects. But over time, we will be the personalization engine that powers content for all sellers in a business at all stages of the funnel. And that includes lots of different types of media assets.
I watched the YouTube video where you gave an example of like the standard email, and then you took one of the pain points of that email and turned it into the GIF, and then you reintroduced that into the email, which just had the email stand out way more. I'll link that video below, and also a link to your site as well if anyone's interested. Reps with the likes of Greenhouse, you've mentioned Intercom, Qualtrics, Grad Guide, all those teams, and there's several others that use your product. And you're still in the early days. I know that you're part of the, I usually get this wrong, as the NDRC Accelerator Program. I hope I got the words right there.
No, you got it.
I've only heard great things about those guys. So I'm curious. I don't know if you're in the middle of it, you're finished the program. It was, I found out on Twitter in July that you'd done it. So what are your thoughts on it? How has it helped you since you launched?
So for us, it's been invaluable. We wouldn't have done it any other way. We would have done it another way if we had to, and if we had not have known, right? Like you're not going to work for Google. You don't even want to know, because you know if you get a taste of it, wow, maybe. So for us, that's what the NDRC is like. We fully intended to run this business and launch it without support. We had some money. We knew what we wanted to do. We have a team that can execute. We don't need to hire. We don't need investment right away. So we're really confident, and we have a product ready to build, well, ready to sell. We'll continue to build on it. The NDRC for us, it was a fellow called Mark McCabe. And if you don't know, check him out. He's an amazing. He Airbnb really early on. His background's phenomenal. He's been a mentor and advisor to folks within the NDRC, but to Vidu as well. And he mentioned to Gavin, like, hey, you should really apply for this. It's going to be one of the first of its kind in Ireland. The model for finance is super founder friendly. It's a lot like YC. It's a simple agreement, future equity, right? No cap, like really reasonable terms. You've got nothing to lose. So we went in for it. We pitched. We got it. And it's been amazing. Like, why? Mentors, coaches. To begin with, the first couple of weeks of this accelerator, it was accelerated. It was like diving in really, really deep, going really fast to start with. I mean, Gavin and I, we were thinking, oh my God, can we maintain this pace? And luckily the program kind of tailed off a little bit and let you work on other things. But the first 3 to 4 weeks, it was like, okay, folks, you've got 5 hours or 4 hours of back-to-back mentoring. And it was like speed dating. You know, so you did 20 minutes, 5-minute break, or you just hop straight into another room, and they just threw tons of stuff at you in the most productive way possible. So we met business leaders in and around Ireland, all over the world, really accomplished, successful people from a ton of companies. Owen and Des from Intercom, they came on, actually, they were helping out. And we got to hear from them. We got to ask them really intimate personal questions in a one-to-one setting. We had fireside chats with them, non-recorded, really open, right? Personable chats.
When you say Owen, you're talking about the founder, aren't you, of Intercom?
Yeah. Owen McCabe, yeah. And Des Trainer. I mean, there were many people, right? But just FYI that those guys were there, and it was amazing just to hear their like unfettered, like completely open, not throttled in any way story about growth, about challenges that they've had, about plans for the future. And it was private, it was confidential, it was so helpful. We wouldn't have gotten access to those people in that way for months. I might have had every 2 or 3 weeks I'd have a chat with somebody like that. Just their status, getting a hold of them is hard, but it was accelerated through their network. We were able to front load all of that. I'm rambling. The first few weeks at this were very, very they were really formative though. Meeting all those people and having all those fucking ideas and shit and crazy stuff thrown at you. And coming off the call and thinking, oh my God, we're doing everything wrong. And then another call and then, no, you're doing everything right. And it was just getting pulled around all the time. It was incredibly, it was formative, right? It really helped us early on to take a step back and say, hey, this is what we want to do. This is how we're going to sell this mission and vision. This is the longer term strategy, but here's what we're going to do right away. And in many ways, it reaffirmed a lot of what we already knew we wanted to do, but it really surprised us as well. So the mentorship and the coaching is phenomenal. The funding and the funding model they have, that's great. I mean, wow, it's access to fast cash on great terms. And then Patrick Walsh and the entire Dog Patch team, they're running the NDRC program, right? They've been trusted to deliver that. Amazing! Like, what a great place. I don't know if you know Dog Patch Labs.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, great people, amazing space. You're surrounded by other startups. I think, remember, for us coming into that was my first time back in an office post-COVID, right? So to be able to leave my job at Intercom and then go straight into Intercom weren't even back in the office, and then go into an office environment. Oh my God, like, if I'd have had to leave that job and then sit in this room for a year, I probably would have been pretty intimidating, worrying, right? But the other part of it then is just the social side of it, and being around other companies at your stage that have similar problems and you're not alone. I'd recommend accelerators to everyone, but in particular, like the NDRC and Dog Patch, for us, it was an incredible experience. We wouldn't have done it another one.
I'll leave a link to both NDRC and Dog Patch below. Couple more questions for you, Will. Have you got your own personal definition of what success means to you?
Maybe. I know I haven't thought about it in that way before. No, I've not really sat down and said, what is success to me? But I'll do it now. I'll think out loud. Success for me. Oh, no, I have. Okay. So success for me, it always was. Maybe this is right or it's wrong. It used to be to earn enough money to never have to think and worry about money. That was my background when I was growing up and in my early career. That was always on my mind, right? It was on my dad's mind, my mum's mind, it was on my mind, and it was a motivator. It was this, I had to go and work. I had to make a better life for myself. If I didn't, it was bad. And I'd seen what bad could look like. I had to go out. And that was, in many ways, it was this push and this catalyst, but in other ways, it was also a burden. It kind of held me back. And I came up with statements like that. I want to earn enough money to never have to worry about money. As soon as I started earning enough money to not have to think as actively and worry as actively about money, you never stop. But then success started to look like freedom and control and being able to set your own path and just say, fuck it, if you wanted to, right? That feeling of independence and being able to say, do you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. And know that you've got that financial net, know that you've got your family and the things you really care about around you. Like, that's, for me, that's success. It's about having the freedom and the autonomy to just go, do you know what? I don't like doing this. I'm going to do this next. That's, you're a successful person and you're in a successful situation if you can do that, if you can afford yourself those pivots, and if you can release yourself from that control placed on you by money, by other people. I think that's really empowering, and more now, that's what I'm interested in. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Have you got a favorite aspect of being your own boss?
Yeah, just doing what I want to do. It's probably a negative thing, but just not having to do all the meetings. And as much as I love working with teams, and I really want to do that soon again, I am enjoying the break from it. I'm enjoying selling again. I'm enjoying doing the job again. I was always close to it, but I'm responsible for it now. Setting my own schedule, my own path, and not having to answer to anyone. There's no investors right now. Anybody but me and my co-founder. That's probably the best bit about it. And we keep on saying, like, hey, you know, if we wanted to, we could just take a Friday off. You know, wow. It's nice to have that option. We've never exercised it, right? I don't think we've ever worked hard.
I always have that thought as well. Does it give you the illusion of freedom or real freedom? Because I'm always like, I like the ability to take a day off, and then I never take a day off. So
yeah. I think maybe I think it's just knowing that you can. That's the thing. I think it's just comforting knowing that you can. And it's one thing working for a company and taking plenty of vacations. It's another thing doing your own thing, working your ass off all the time, but knowing that if you ever wanted to, you could, and you could just pack it in and you could just stop. And I think for me, that's a very powerful thing. I don't need to exercise that option, but I know damn well that I could. And that's very liberating, you know?
Talking about, I did that for the first time this week. I haven't done it in maybe 5 years. And on Sunday, I was sitting with my brother having a beer, and he says, I'm going to Paris on Wednesday for 36 hours. Do you fancy coming? And I looked at my Google calendar and I was like, I don't have much that I can't move. Fuck it, I'm going to go. So first time ever, I just said, I'm going to go. You
don't need to ask the boss, right?
No.
You don't need to book it in. Oh, well, with a policy, you know, if it's less than 72 hours, none of that. You just go and do it, and you take your work with you, and that's fine. So in many ways, there are these arbitrary expectations and structures in companies and corporates, and sort of sometimes it can be management for the sake of management, and policy, and there are certain folks, you know, you can really trust them, and maybe they have a bit of freedom, but you know, but for the group, we need to set a policy for everybody, right? We all need to follow the same rules. That's a great thing about being your own boss. Like, well, I trust myself, so yeah, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna catch up on that day, and I'm gonna work a bit here, and I'll work less there, and just not to have to go through the rigmarole of asking those questions and seeking permission is really fun.
Let's finish up on this question, and it is, if you could add a mandatory subject to the secondary school curriculum that's not currently on it, what would it be and why?
Oh, wow. This is good. It would probably be something practical, right? You've got all these academic subjects. It's amazing. You've got some more practical classes. I think that my favorite classes at school were business studies. And it was in part, I love math, I love sciences. And I loved it because it engaged me, and they were hard, and I was very distractible, and I had a short attention span. I found things like English and language is hard. Love numbers, love sciences. There's an answer to the question, go and find it, you know? Not too much to interpret either way. I like that. But business was my favorite, and it was because of the teachers. Like, oh my God, these people would come in. There's a fellow called Mr. Love. And this guy was, I don't know if he was just flagging us or what, but he had something going on. Like, he knew something you didn't know. And he'd drop a line here or there, and you'd be like, Jesus Christ, this guy is a business mogul. What is he into? What's going on? And he had his investments on the side, and he was a mysterious character, but he was somebody that all of us enjoyed because he was straightforward and he was very practical. He didn't bullshit you, and you could ask him questions, right, about how to run a business. It was silly stuff back then, wasn't it? You'd learn about P&L sheets, balance sheets, all that sort of simple stuff like that. But he was really up for being challenged, and he'd really get into the weeds with you, and he'd talk about things in context of real life and business. I think more people should be pushed at school to setting up their own enterprise. For me, it was never part of the curriculum, but people like Mr. Love and others in that space really inspired me to, like, this is simple, I can do this. Like, you've demystified it. Like, there's nothing to it. Like, why not? So I went out and I did those things in simple ways. And for me, that was incredible. I learned so much interfacing with people, managing my own, you know, profit and loss, my own cash flow, going and buying my own inventory, selling it, marketing it, all that sort of stuff. It was just this wealth of learning for me. And I think much like these home ec classes and stuff like that, a practical class and curriculum around setting up, and not just on a piece of paper, but literally setting up a business and running it. I think that'd be great, because for me, it's only when I got out into that type of a space that I started to learn what I really enjoyed and what got me going. Business is so multifaceted. There's so many aspects to it. And like diving in at a young age was really impactful for me.
Nice.
Makes sense?
Well, it does. It's been great to spend the last 45 minutes chatting to you, getting to know a little bit more about you, your business, what you've done. I wish you continued success in your role. I'll leave a link to Dogpatch Labs, NDRC, your website, your LinkedIn, and the YouTube video you recently posted about the example of how you can take an email and make it better with your product. So, but for today, thanks again for being my guest.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.